Jeffrey Sedlick constructs his portraits through a process he calls orchestration. He treats every element of a frame, from the subject's physical anatomy to the specific texture of their clothing, as a variable under his total control. His style relies on strict control over lighting, wardrobe, and jewelry. Notice the patterned shirt, the gold pendant, and the high-contrast shadows. This diagram breaks down Sedlick's portrait of jazz legend Miles Davis. He directed Davis into a shh gesture to symbolize musical notes, paired with a dimly lit chiaroscuro lighting effect and a stark black void background. In 2017, celebrity tattoo artist Kat Von D used that 1989 portrait as the primary reference to ink a freehand tattoo on a friend's arm. Von D's technical process involved tracing Sedlick's photograph to create a stencil for the basic physical outline. From there, she completed approximately 99% of the actual inking through freehand shading. Sedlick had secured a copyright registration for his photograph in 1994, building a commercial licensing business around the image. Von D, meanwhile, documented her tattooing process and the final result, sharing those images across her parlor's social media platforms to promote her brand. Sedlick sued for copyright infringement. This collision between a photographer's controlled orchestrations and a tattoo artist's translation of an image into a new medium forced a confrontation within the Ninth Circuit. The dispute landed in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, the federal court holding jurisdiction over much of the American entertainment industry. To determine if an artist has infringed a copyright, the Ninth Circuit relies on a bifurcated framework, dividing the legal analysis into two distinct stages. This split-screen graphic illustrates the two opposing stages. On one side is the extrinsic test, an objective, analytical dissection of the work's components. On the other side is the intrinsic test, a subjective evaluation based on the impressions of an ordinary lay observer. Separating cold analysis from human reaction creates an unpredictable legal environment. It builds a system where objective evidence of copying can be completely overridden if a jury decides the overall vibes of the two works simply feel different. Phase 1 is the extrinsic test. Here, the court steps in to perform an objective analytic dissection of the two works, looking strictly for concrete similarities in how they are constructed. In this visualization, you can see how the court applies a legal filter required by Section 102B of the Copyright Act. Section 102B is a rule stating that copyright cannot protect broad ideas or concepts. The court strips away generic labels, like the idea of photographing a jazz musician, leaving behind only the artist's specific, protectable, expressive choices. Under this objective scrutiny, Sedlick's orchestration of the lighting, the stark background, and the exact positioning of the subject's hands act as his legally protectable artistic expression. If a plaintiff's case survives this analytical phase, the judge's power ends. The objective grids are put away, handing the decision to a jury. The Ninth Circuit relies on this initial, rigorous stage to ensure that artists cannot use copyright law to monopolize basic concepts and ideas that belong to the public domain. Phase 2, the intrinsic test, is where the rules change. The jury is instructed to evaluate the total concept and feel of the works from the perspective of an ordinary lay observer. The analytical dissection of lighting and posing is abandoned. The jury is asked to rely on their gut feeling. They look at the two pieces and decide if they share the same overall subjective impression. During the Sedlick trial, the jury looked at the photograph and the tattoo. They concluded that Kat Von D's stylistic changes, combined with the visual effect of ink on human skin, created a different concept and feel than the original photo. The jury reached a verdict of no infringement for both the tattoo and the sketch. They also determined that Von D's social media posts documenting her process fell under the protection of fair use. Because the intrinsic test acts as a final filter in this jurisdiction, the case was over. The subjective feeling that the works gave off legally defeated the objective evidence of tracing and copying. This creates a specific appellate constraint for creators. Because the intrinsic test is subjective and reserved for a jury's impressions, it is difficult to successfully challenge the outcome in a higher court. In January 2026, a Ninth Circuit appellate panel affirmed the trial verdict. They noted a historical fact. The Ninth Circuit has never reversed a jury's finding of no substantial similarity under the intrinsic prong. While they upheld the verdict, 2 judges on the panel issued concurring opinions questioning the test itself. They characterized the reliance on total concept and feel as a standardless inquiry. The judges warned that by instructing juries to focus on a work's overall vibe rather than its specific elements, the law allows people to escape liability for copying. An infringer can make superficial tweaks to a piece's aesthetic while still misappropriating the original creator's expressive choices. This public disagreement suggests the intrinsic test is losing its status as a settled legal standard. For the first time in decades, the court's reliance on total concept and feel is openly questioned by the judges required to apply it. This map highlights a divide across the country. While the Ninth Circuit relies on its subjective framework, the Second and 10th Circuits utilize filtration models that rely on judges isolating objective expressive choices. Recognizing this fracture, Jeffrey Sedlick filed a petition in February 2026 for a rehearing en banc. He is asking the full court to abolish the intrinsic test entirely. The stakes now extend far beyond tattoos. The legal argument over whether translating a work into a new medium excuses copying mirrors the logic used by developers of generative artificial intelligence. AI models ingest vast amounts of data to output variations that perfectly mimic an original artist's unique style. If a jury decides that a different medium or a slight change in aesthetic creates a new total concept, it provides a legal roadmap for AI tools to look new while being entirely derivative. The Sedlick litigation forces the courts to make a choice. They must decide whether artistic expression is